Thank you all for being here. I'm Chief McDaniel. I'm the new executive director here at the chamber as of November. So I appreciate you all coming out, and I'll put it over to Tia, and she can introduce our guests.
Thank you, Paige. It's always fun to work with the El Dorado Chamber. You folks, you set the bar so high every year. You start us off with a bang, and we get rolling on our legislative coffees, and we really, really appreciate that. And we appreciate our working relationship with the El Dorado Chamber. So thank you very much. I have a few people that I need to introduce. I bet you think the head table up here would be some. Well, before I get to the good stuff, let me introduce two board members from Butler County Farm Bureau that helped put this together. Our policy chair is Jeff Varner in the back. And our vice president is Dean Good over in the corner. And so we put it in the corner. And that's exactly where I'll put anybody who is disrespectful, who argues with the legislators or anything. And I say that in jest, but we do have some moments. And really, we're here to ask and learn. It's really not a public debate forum. And it would be sad if you made the old grandma up here be a bouncer. So thank you for your respect. Now, let me get introducing the important people that we have with us today. We have Senator Mike Fagg on the end. And I think if you're from El Dorado, you know Mike. He's representative of 14th District, which has changed just a little bit from the area that it was. And then we have Will Carpenter from the 75th District, which again, if you're from El Dorado, you know Will. And we are so excited that we have the longest drive, always every year award goes to Doug Blex from the 12th District. And we appreciate him coming up and joining in our legislative coffee here this morning. I do want to tell you two other dates before I forget. We will be doing this in Andover at 7 a.m. On the 7th, at 9 a.m. in the music scene with the Andover Chamber. We'll be in Augusta at 9 o'clock on the 28th, both next month in March, and then we'll be in Benton on April 4th. Those are our last 3 of the year. So just wanted to give you that heads up. You didn't come to listen to me, you came to listen to these gentlemen. They will all open with a statement and then they will accept questions. So Senator Fagg, would you like to start?
Sure. Do we have 2 minutes or 2 hours?
It's your time.
Oh,
Yeah. You're by yourself.
You know, first of all, I'd like to start with a thank you. Thank you for letting me represent each and every one of you. It's an absolute honor to be up there. I'm starting my 6th year. I'm on 4 committees. 8:30 starts Ag/Natural Resources. 9:30 is Financial Institutions/Insurance. I'm vice chair of that. 10:30 is Ways and Means. We've been really crunching the budget here. That's been the big thing the last couple of weeks, getting that through. And then at 1:30, I chair utilities, so I don't have to tell you what's in that area right now. So then you go to 4 at 2:30, and that's every day. So this is the latest I've got to sleep in, I think, in 2 weeks. So this is kind of what's going on with this. Just remember that and I'm proud to be a Kansan too. You know, we think we got our problems. There's a lot of other problems around this world. Sometimes you look and say, Lord, thank you for what we have. And do we have issues? Sure we do, you know, but we're always looking at how do we fix it and how do we work together. So as you start this, I've got this little thing here from last year, because right now we're making sausage. You come and say, okay, Mike, what's going to happen in this area? I have no idea. That's what I would tell you, because there are so many bills floating around. Each of these committees are working right now. We haven't had a lot come to the floor at this point, or at least they're below the line, they call it. We had 4 the other day, and I had one that went above there. So we're kind of in a process early of setting the table for what's going to happen with some of this. So, as you know, in each one of these, we have 15 committees on the Senate side, and each one has a chair, and the chair and the vice chair go to conferences, which that's a whole different thing. But as chair, you get to set what bills you're gonna hear and what bills you're gonna work. And that's a big job, you know, and that kind of thing, because I've got 10 in my bottom drawer right now, I'm not gonna work. So those are important decisions to make, because those bills would be there if they weren't important to somebody, but you only got so much time and you got the priorities into this kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at, and to let you know, I want to be sure and let you know, don't send me emails. I'd rather you call me and I'll give you a card with my cell phone on it. I get over 100 emails a day. I could be full-time answering emails. And that's very hard. So if you get something big enough, it's kind of nice to, like Farm Bureau, have Tia call me, you know, where you kind of as a group, you get your ideas and come in that way. Because a lot of times you get these individual things going and just flood you, so. We're in election year. That's the big thing I would say going on up there. They want to get out of session quick so they can all get out and start campaigning. On the Senate side, there's 3 senators running for governor, so you can imagine the dynamics, what goes into that deal. We've got one, I think, that's running against Roger Marshall as senator too, which I find interesting, so. But I would also say that we're there trying to do a job for the best we can do for Kansas. So I'm saying on the Senate side, there's 40 of us. We're not gonna agree on everything, but it's not as bad as what you see on TV. So you try not to get hung up on one issue, because we have 10 other issues coming right behind that. So I can kind of tell you what I'm working on, but I think that's enough for me at this point, and let the other 2 talk and we'll go from there.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Will Carpenter, this is my 12th year in representing the district, and I can't tell you how honored I am to do that. But I will tell you get your money out of me. We work our rears off. I worked 3 12-hour days this week, just getting, next week is our last week of committee. And so we've got anything we get on the agenda this week, and then Monday, that's it for the year. Then it's turnaround. I'm not an exempt committee, and just some committees, there's 3 exempt committees, tax and Fed and state and judiciary, that you can work after the turnaround. But everything in my committee ends, which is not a bad thing. But anyway, so getting that agenda ready and then hearing bills, and but it's fun. My overreaching deal, I chair, I'm on a probes at 9, I chair Health and Human Services at 1:30, and then I'm vice chair of Social Services Budget, which is about $8 billion budget between all this stuff. So I stay a little bit busy on those, but like Mike said too, we have the strong chair situation where we have the ability to hear bills or not hear bills. And a lot of times, if you didn't have that, and some chairs aren't as strong about it, but I could burn that building down with a controversial bill, and Mike knows that, you know, because it just, everybody starts fighting and you know, and everybody takes a position. So it's good that a chair, you know, a lot of bills I look at, and my vision on bills is I look at them, if they're controversial especially, but any bill, it has to have minimum of 63, and if the governor doesn't like it, we have to have 84 and 27 senators, and so you just don't want to waste your time on bills that you don't think have any traction, you can't get any traction on. So a lot of our bills, like you said, man, I look at them and I think, what? Trash. You know, I mean, they're never going to see the light of day, just because they're very, and, you know, we have a lot of guys that tell people, I don't do that, but a lot of people say, well, I'll introduce a bill. Well, it may be like for 1% of the state, you know, but they told their constituent that they'd introduce this bill. Well, they know damn well that it's not going to go anywhere, but they did their job. They told that constituent, they should have said, anyway. But it's fun. My whole deal in health and human services has been access to healthcare. That's been my whole deal is knocking down, the healthcare industry throughout have silos, and they've developed them over the years where scope of practice, and you can't, even though you're trained for that, you can't get my little deal because that's my little deal, not any other reason, but you've got plenty of training, but you can't get in my little deal because that's my little deal, not because of endangering people. And I've had some pretty good fights. There's some people in this room that can attest to that about that. And but it's all good. It's all about access. It's not anything personal against that group of providers or anything else. It's just about that knocking down and access to healthcare. We need that. So that's about all I'm going to say. Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I serve on the Health and Human Services with Chairman Carpenter. He does a fantastic job. You are getting your money's worth out of him, and I applaud what he's done. Doug Blex, I'm House District 12, which is a little corner of Butler County. I have 5 counties, and I serve on Health and Human Services, Ag, Water, and Vice Chair of the local government. And it's been kind of interesting this year. I don't think this is my 10th year, and it'll be my last, but I'll tell you what, I've had more people in my office this year. It's just been constant. I mean, we can't even hardly, and when you have 4 committees, I like to talk to constituents, but when you have 4 committees, then you just don't have any time. Time you get on the floor, time the next committee, and all of our committees seems like when we finally got to do something, which is revisers have been very slow getting stuff out. We'd gavel in and basically ask any bill introductions, and none, or gavel out because we couldn't get the numbers. So we're finally starting to work them, and so we're behind, and it is fun in some ways, some days, other days not so much, but you know, it's controversy, and as Will said, the CRNAs and the anesthetist assistants have been in a big turf battle this year. Tons of emails. I'm on the water committee and have a lot of water expertise and background, and ironically, a big controversial water bill with the city of Hayes been fighting for 11 years, the county, on that water transfer project, and it ends up in local government where I'm vice chair. So I get to deal with water over there, and we absolutely pack the room. It's a room not much bigger than that, and we have protocol up there that the conferees or any of the public cannot stand behind the legislators. That's somewhat a safety thing. Sometimes in Health and Human Services, we need that too. It gets pretty intense there. And our privacy of them looking at their notes, and we actually had to allow the public to sit behind some of the legislators. I went to the chair, and I knew some of the group, but it's amazing sometimes when you get up there, the enemy of my enemy becomes my friend, because you have 2 controversial groups that are totally that far apart, and yet they may join on a particular issue. And that particular issue also somewhat relates to water. It's a battle over the Navigable River at Garden City, which the arc has been dry for 25, 30 years, but it's still a river. There's only 3 navigable rivers in the state of Kansas: the Kansas, the Missouri, and the Ark. And actually, they're designated that way by feds, and the city of Garden City has a homeless group that are coming in there and building plywood, pallet shacks, and semi-permanent dwellings. And of course, if you're below the high water mark, you have a legal right to be on there, and they've got a problem. So they went in there and want the county to zone out and regulate the river, which they're gonna have a battle with me. I'm 110% against it. You deal with the problem there, don't burn down the barn to get rid of the rats. And that's kind of things we deal with pretty much constantly. And this year it just seems like it's just one or the other. And in my area of expertise, I feel comfortable, but when you get pulled in some of those side controversial, it gets tough. That's when I have to rely on my colleagues there and some of that. But I do appreciate you having me. It's always fun for me to come. I got up this morning, I looked out, my chickens wasn't even up yet, but, it was early, but, Butler County has a soft spot in my heart, particularly with the Farm Bureau. I really enjoy their board. I have 5 counties and I deal with that. I'm going to Elk and, Chautauqua the 21st, for a legislative coffee too type thing. I guess the good thing, and I get the chamber too, pharmacy and the pill tax bill that we're getting all kinds of emails on. Mom and pop pharmacies are going out of business. I've been a strong proponent of that, not them going out of business, but trying to save them. And now we're pitting the chamber and business owners and employers that if we increase the minimum prescription fee, then that's gonna raise the price. But, and I'm getting a lot of emails, but I've had 4 or 5 go out of business in my district. And it's sad, to see them go out and they're gonna have, and, you know, one case in Howard, Eureka sends a nurse practitioner over. Grandma lives 2 blocks from the local Bateson's pharmacy there in Howard. And Eureka Hospital is a 340B. I won't get into too much complex, but they basically say she has to get her prescription at Eureka Hospital, which is 35 miles away, or get it online. Well, for a lot of 75-year-old grandmas telling her she has to get it online, just saying you can't have it. So we are losing that, being able to walk in and having that, and it's a big battle. And I'm very strong with business. I don't like to set free enterprise, but when you get a PBM, pharmacy benefit manager group that is using unfair tactics and messing with a small guy, that kind of ruffles me. So again, thank you for having me, and I guess we're here for questions.
I think we should, yeah. I believe,
Go ahead.
I just believe a lot more of us getting up here and rambling on. We wanna hear what you guys have to say. What's up?
Doug,
Leon?
you just mentioned the pharmacy benefit managers. I represent the Kansas Silver-Haired Legislature, and that's been one of the topics that's come up with us and everything. What is the state doing about that? It's kind of a federal thing, but the state, can they get involved, and how can we help that part? Because we have one right down the street here that's affected by all of that. True Care is one of those that.
It is primarily, it needs to be addressed at the federal level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the issue. And without getting into too much details, basically you have 3 of your largest drugstores, CVS, Caremark, and Walgreens, and I can't remember the other right now, I should, but they dispense 87% nationally of the prescription. So they set up a price, and then they have this group that negotiates with the drug manufacturers on what price of a drug should be for everybody. And it was originally designed to give a rebate back to the patients for those that may not be able to afford. And what we're seeing, these big, large corporations are creating vertical integration, a subsidiary company, so that the rebate's going back to a company that they basically own. So we're getting tons of emails, 1050, and I addressed that the first day we had the meeting. If grandma's getting a prescription for 10 years, whatever it is, and all of a sudden and we pass a 1050 dispensing fee, and I've got sheets and sheets and sheets of pharmacies where it costs me $10 to dispense this, and I get 6. Well, it doesn't take a very smart person to figure that out. And it's mainly independent pharmacies, small mom and pops, that's being affected, that we all, look at the traditional soda fountains and all that for at least my age group. And so the level playing field, and I said, well, here's what's gonna happen. She's gonna go in the pharmacy and say, now my $18 prescription is now going to $28. Why did that happen? And the pharmacy is gonna say, well, even though they complained to me to get it, they're gonna say, well, contact your representative. So that's kind of the position we get into, but it's complicated. I don't know how it's gonna end up. I don't like to set prices. I don't like that's almost border on socialism, but I also like level playing fields.
Jennifer Clausen from True Care Pharmacy. So respectfully, Representative, I would encourage you not to call it a pill tax because it is not a pill tax.
I did not call it a pill tax. That's what
That's what the others are
that's what
calling
the
it,
other
yeah.
side
And
is
that's
getting
why I
off.
wanted
That's
to,
the title on my email, pill tax. Say
Yeah.
no to pill tax.
Yeah.
Mine
So,
too.
I would like to, encourage people to understand that currently we're in a spread, what's called a spread pricing model, which is basically they pay the pharmacy. We have example after example of 22 cents we get paid for a prescription of cholesterol medication, and they will charge the employer. We don't know because it's not transparent enough that the employers do not get that information. It could be $25, $30, $40. We don't know. But they're making a lot of money, so it's probably high. So, obviously we can't fill a prescription for 22 cents. That's our cost or less. That doesn't count for the cost of our employees, health insurance for our employees, taxes, keeping the building open. So there has to be something that's done differently. Currently, the Kansas Medicaid model is essentially cost plus $10.50.
Yeah.
That's where the $10.50 came from, is from the Kansas model, Kansas Medicaid model. It saved Kansas quite a bit of money. Yeah, so it's not a pill tax, it's a different payment model. And the transparency is the most important part of the bill that we have. And, I know it's very hard to put a dollar on that, but, as far as a dispensing fee, and it really sounds like we need that, but
You're being
we
for-
shouldn't have to.
Yeah, you're being forced out,
What's very sad
baby.
is we should not have to ask for
Yeah,
this.
and I think, there's a certain amount of, the competition is trying to run small pharmacies out of business. Because of mail order and that kind of stuff and control that, but just to give you an interesting deal that happened to me, we had an interim committee on this last year. And so the pharmacists were there and they were all saying, talking about this, no transparency. And so I said, well, get me a copy of the contract. And so, Eric Turi goes over to the insurance company or the insurance partner, he calls back, he goes, Will, I can't give you a copy of that. I said a lot of things, but because I'm not very filtered when it comes up. And in about 4 years ago or something, in a conference committee on a pharmacy bill, PBM bill, pharmacy benefit manager, there was an amendment at the end of that bill added that no pharmacist, nobody could get a copy of that, of a contract between a pharmacist and a PBM.
Wow. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And so I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but I just could not believe that anybody would do that. I believe totally in transparency. Every damn thing we do should be just wide open on this deal right here so people can understand it. And I still, and I think the Senate has a little bit of a bill to address that.
Well, we worked on it this week. The room was full of folks, and I mean, big players in this deal. And we kicked it out. So, I mean, it's going to the floor. So we did what we could do with it, so.
But that's kind of reinforces what you're hearing, what we have to deal with. The say no to pill tax was the title on everything on it. So the opposition gets a catchy thing and all of a sudden they pick it up and then they send it. And that's what the decisions we have to make and filter that stuff out to be able to make an intelligent vote.
We were informed yesterday that you guys are receiving bot emails.
Yep.
That are basically saying they're from constituents, and they are not from constituents.
Right.
They are from either CVS's patient population that they have. This happened in Mississippi last year, and in Arkansas, CVS also sent out basically a legislator called every person that sent him an email, and those people did not send the email.
I
They were
would
sent
not
from
be
bots.
surprised at that.
So-
I'm getting say no to pill tax from people that live 3 or 4 miles away from me. So there's a group that's,
They're in your district.
yeah, they're telling what to say, and we get a standard, if we get a standardized email, at least I do, if it's form, it's pretty much delete.
Me too.
There's a button on that computer for a reason.
That's why I want you to call me. That weeds that down.
What else?
But politics and personality play into this game too, so we're just starting to mix the sausage and make sure the meat is in the machine, so that's where we're at.
CRNAs and nurse anesthetist assistants, big, lot of emails on it. They mainly CRNAs can work more or less independently. They come out. The assistant anesthetist cannot. It's probably urban versus rural. However, during COVID and immediately after, some of the CNRAs, and I hope I don't offend anybody in the room, I guess if I do, facts are facts. Some of them are making $450,000 a year. They were gouging hospitals who are struggling, that has to come up with that extra money. Just like the state of Kansas has to come up with extra money for an RN for our state hospitals that quadruples the normal salary. And so we kind of tend to think when we hear that and we see that maybe we need more competition. That's the logical thing. So do we let assistant anesthetists in the game, which will primarily benefit that northeastern corridor, or how do we handle it? Those are the kind of decisions that you end up with.
And they're licensed in a lot of other states, and we haven't seen, the cry wolf type of, the sky is gonna fall on you. But it goes back to the access issue. So last year we had that bill, we heard it in health, and it blew up. Right? So guys, get together. They negotiated all summer, but CRNAs, and I was actually gonna support them having prescriptive authority, which is something they don't have now. But they were so stuck on not having the AAs in there. But we gave them everything they want. So every one of those emails that we get from CRNAs is false information. We gave them all the training slots. We addressed every one of their issues to get them to come on board with the AA licensing. They still continue to put out this false information because we've addressed all that in the bill. So we're gonna work it next week, and I got the votes in the committee to pass it out. So
And Chairman Carpenter and the previous chairman done a great job. It's great. There's a lot of things we don't know anything about. I mean, we have the people that's expert. He gave them marching orders, and the committee supported him unanimously. You guys work on this all summer and bring this back next year with a compromise. And one group wouldn't compromise. Well, when they don't do that, it don't look good or set well with us. So then we're gonna take the ball in our court, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
and most of them do. We've had
Good luck with them.
2 or 3 this last week that blew up on me in committee, and I was like, oh my God. And then, I asked them in committee, are you guys that far off on this? No, we can work this out. What the hell? Why didn't that happen before you come in here before the public? So send them out there, knock some heads, get it together Friday, by Friday, and I email them every morning encouraging them to do it. And I think we're gonna get Home Plus done, and so anyway, that's kind of how sausage gets made up there. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, I'm Susan George, I'm a longtime resident of Dorado. I used to work at Circle, right now I'm a physician assistant. Thank you very much for having this, thank you for being open for questions. The bathroom bill, SB 244, I believe it's called. So you mentioned people think this is important, so my question is, number one, who thought it was important? Because it feels like we're creating problems where a problem doesn't exist. And 2, who's gonna monitor? Who's gonna be the bathroom monitor and checks the genitals of these people coming in? Thank you very much.
I guess I'll
Go
start
for
with
it,
that.
Mike.
I'll go find
I'll follow you.
I have no
Follow
idea.
him.
I have no idea. You know, I hear about that on the news. I don't know what committee that's in. Anybody can introduce a bill on any item. So to say where that's it in the process, I will have somebody call me up and say, well, what are you gonna do about it? I need to read the bill. And I don't read the bill until it gets to where it's within my realm of on the floor. It's come out of committee, because committee work's kind of important, because like in the Senate, there's 11 people there and you have proponents and opponents, and you spend some time on that. And then when it comes out, if I'm not on that committee, I haven't heard all of this. So I don't know where that's at. I would
But
be
it's
surprised.
passed, right? It has passed, it's waiting for Governor Kelly to veto.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, it did.
It
did.
We voted on it last week, and, you know,
Did we vote on that too?
Senate.
That
I
wasn't
think
early
it
one?
came, it's a Senate bill, so you voted on it.
Did we? Okay.
You know,
That was a 38-0 vote then. If it, because we had 4 that went out that didn't have any.
I don't think it would have been 38.
Well, that's what I thought. That's all we really worked with.
Yeah. You know, we're not.
You know what the bill number is on that?
It says
2044.
SB 244.
Senate Bill 2044.
244, Senate substitute, House substitute.
And
yeah.
I'm not sure where that's at, but we're not in leadership, so a lot of times we have to deal with whatever leadership gets in front of us. But I will tell you, I'm just gonna be perfectly blunt about it, and some people are gonna get pissed off and some people aren't, but you need to go to the bathroom, that you have the tools to go to the bathroom with. That's been my overarching deal from the get-go. I know people, blah, 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 but think about those other people that have the right to not be in a bathroom, a girl that doesn't need to be in there with some guy, you know what I mean? And she has rights too. So it's a really, I don't care. I've just simply done that. That's what I say. You go to the bathroom, that you have the tools to. I don't care if you call yourself a girl, you guy, I don't care. So that's where I'm at. It's been plain and simple from the get-go, and that's it.
So you go to kslegislator.org. That's a big website that tells you everything you wanna know, and tells you exactly where that bill's at and what's going on. And that, if it's there, I've missed that one. That's why I have been so involved with budgets that, you know, some of this stuff it's important, but budgets are important too. So that's what I've been factoring in here, so.
So you mentioned that these things need to be important. Obviously, it's so important that neither, people weren't even aware, know what they were voting on. As a woman in Kansas, I know that I have been in the men's restroom many times because the line for the women's restroom is way longer. The facilities are the same. I have also been privileged to go to Europe, where they have bathrooms, we have stalls that the doors go from top to bottom and they lock very well. And there's an open area where everyone can wash their hands.
Yeah.
It's very safe, it's very clean. I again feel like a theme was passed for no reason other than to pick on a certain group. I was raised and educated in Kansas where the majority rules, but with consideration for minority rights. And I feel like the minority, and it's a very, very small minority, is getting picked on. Also, what are you gonna do with the trans men who have a full beard that are now expected to go into the women's restroom? How is that? Women don't feel, women and trans people, I feel, are not threatened by other women and trans people. We're threatened by cis men. And I don't feel like this bill, number one, we're again creating problems where a problem doesn't exist. It's a bad look for the state. And it's,
If a biological male can walk into a woman's restroom, the problem does exist. And I'll guarantee, I'm a retired wildlife biologist, and believe you me, I know there's 2 sexes, male and female, and with the frickin' wind don't blow, and you get a change of season, and I feel like a woman, it isn't gonna happen. And I got a nice bull, and cattle prices are high, I'd love for him to have a calf, but it ain't reality. So I'm gonna be a no vote. We spent 6 hours on the floor of jacking around with duplicative amendments by the other side, and when we was already behind, it's gonna make some bills not even being able to be worked. So we talk about a waste of time. And I've got granddaughters and I don't want a biological male with it. I will never support it, never.
I wonder
That's
how many
the
times
bottom
that has
line.
happened, that we thought it was such a big problem, we need to have a law to fix it.
Right.
How many times has it happened?
If it happened once, that's too many,
Has it happened once?
more than likely. How do you know it hadn't?
It's never been in the news. Why would I think that's a problem? Why do you, it's never come up with an example or a place or an image. There's never been an issue with telling somebody they can't go there.
Do you want a
Until we have a
biological
law.
male? Do you have granddaughters?
Do you want me to show my genitals so you know where I can go? How do you know I'm not?
Well, how do you?
And who's gonna do the checking?
Was this before?
You
our
just
state
gave
got
perverts
that?
permission to check everybody's
6
pants.
hours a day.
Yeah, 6 hours. We've covered this.
Cost me a committee, 2 committees.
None of us could go to committees.
Okay, and that did go through the Senate, but it went quick. I
Yeah.
don't think there's been much debate.
Yeah.
Solving your problem that wasn't a problem.
And how
Wasting
it's
your
done.
time.
Okay, what
No
about,
problem.
this bill also covered, reissue of your driver's license and your birth certificate to your biological sex at birth.
How does that affect?
And that's
you?
important for law enforcement. It's important for safety when a person is stopped and they're dressed like a woman, but yet biologically they're male, because normally when a law enforcement male will not search a female suspect if that gets into a point. So it solves quite a few more problems than that.
Makes more problems.
I'm sorry if I offend you, but that's it.
You're not offending me. I think it's just stupidity that says we have to solve a problem that isn't a problem.
We have to vote on what's before us.
You should have said this isn't a problem. Let's move on to stuff that is important, like this CPF.
We don't have that
we were
choice.
talking about.
So remember, we got 165 people up there.
Right.
What we do, the
So did
real
you vote
art of
against
this
it
is
because
how
it was
do
a
I
waste of
convince
time?
them to do, you know, because I know how I feel, how do you convince them, that kind of thing, so.
But did
that
you vote
makes-
against it because it's a waste of time?
You know, let's say the vote was 39-2, you know, kind of, or 38-2, would that made a difference?
Yeah.
Well,
You're my
it'd
representative.
been 37-3 and it'd have went. That
But
would,
you're
then this
representing me.
is where it goes from there. Then people's gonna see you on that issue, and then when you have something come up, you think they're gonna be up there for you, cause there's some egos that float around up there.
No doubt.
And then what I'm looking for is to bring what I can home, the best thing for our district. And then there is politics in this world, believe it or not, and you just try to work through that to do the best you can with it.
And I am representing the majority of my district when I vote for that bill. Whether you like it or not, you're a minority, it's, you know, I'm just saying, you're a minority. I'm not pointing at anybody or anything else, but the vast majority of my district believes exactly like I voted. And that's who I'm
How do you
representing.
know? How do you know?
Because I'm out there every day talking to them. I've been doing this for a few years.
And
So,
it'd be interesting what our bill was in the Senate on it. I remember it now,
I
so.
think we was in the 80s or high
Yeah.
70s, a high 70 vote,
And some people.
somewhere in there, and we had some people go,
Let's just get back to,
yeah.
thank you.
what do you guys else, what else? you
Hey,
guys
Mike,
want?
I'll change the topic for you. So you mentioned utilities, that
Yeah.
you're on that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you know what's going on in that, kind of said, I don't know what's going on in that. So can you tell me what the fluff up is
Well,
with utilities
okay.
in particular?
Well, when you say utilities, you got different areas. You know, data centers is one.
Yes, and so I'd like
I
you
mean, there's a lot of areas you go into.
what are you guys thinking in terms of utilities? What's coming across your desk? What are you guys
This
thinking?
week, we have like the state of Kansas versus, the railroads. That'd be a
Oh.
big one. And what that has to do is when you go out here to the railroad track and you're trying to run a gas line or a electric line under the railroad, it takes too long to do that. And it's very expensive, so it's, all these, utilities are wanting to do something to where they have a timeline to answer them and get the process going.
Is that a state thing or a national thing?
It's,
Because railroads.
well, railroads are gonna tell you they're national, and this is gonna be a big deal.
Yeah,
so
'cause
this-
they're
this-
basically considered sovereign basically when they were given all their rights
That's what they're
years
gonna
ago.
be in there, and they'll have the best lawyers in the country there, that's what I would tell you.
So
But
that
there's
is
some
a
oth-
problem.
Well, it is a problem, and you talk to all the utility companies, that's why they run this bill, so that's the one that's this week coming up.
Well, as you know,
Yeah.
probably, the 9th Street here in town
Yeah.
is we wanna run a road there across it, and we have to, every time we do something, a railroad, we have to deal with it.
So that's what we're trying to work on,
So-
and there's other states that have done some bills that's helped with that,
So,
so that's
Are you
why,
hopeful for being able to fix that or address that?
what, we're doing our best, that's what I would say.
Because it does need to be done.
Cause all the utilities got this is where you get together, like he's talking through the summer, cause we had a joint committee. That whole group got together and worked on a bill, here's the bill coming forward.
Why are railroads so opposed to making those changes?
Well, week from today, I'll tell you. after we do that. So we're
It
gonna-
is
we're
problematic.
gonna find out, it is a problem.
And just data centers, touch on that if you would.
Data centers, the thing that, cause I got to go to Google for 2 days, I've done some stuff through the summertime trying to prepare for this. The thing that, we gotta be very careful with is that we let people know we're open for business, but that doesn't mean they run over us. Because every state's wanting these things, and you say, well, why would you want one? I had a guy from the state of Maine that was telling me, he said, Mike, in my county where I live versus the county over that I have a friend live, we have a data center, they don't. And he just grinned on what his property taxes were. You know, this is a big deal to help with property tax, so it's one of those kind of things, I don't wanna say no to something with that kind of thing, but that doesn't mean that we're not gonna set some rules and regulations as you go along with that, so. That's, and they're looking at this more than you realize. I was in Kansas City and the room was full, you know, of what this is going on with this kind of thing, so.
Is it because of the power that they have to
That's because of the power, and you also hear about water. Now, somebody happens to have some water in Butler County.
But they have,
Yeah, I wonder who that is.
Yeah.
but they do have, and the technology, and Mike knows about 100 times more than I do, but they do have closed loop systems where
They do.
they're not constantly doing water. And then there's a lot of these little nuclear plants, these miniature nuclear plants, that they can set up and produce their own electricity. So technology is really my first deal.
You
I
guys,
didn't-
if you are
I didn't care for them because I'm concerned about raising everybody's electric cost. You know, they don't benefit from data centers. But with that, their own generation and stuff like that, I think that they'll be better. They do have a noise factor too. My friend lives down in Arkansas and they have like a bunch of those, and that was one. It's a constant humming. And they've actually addressed that by putting berms up around the deals in Arkansas. So as long as it doesn't affect, you know, people and our electric rates, that's my biggest fear. You know, we've got Panasonic, which we just found out last week, they're gonna potentially shift the burden of the cost of electricity. They're not gonna pay what everybody else pays, and that's potentially shifting that burden into people that in Butler County or Western Kansas or whatever, that they're not gonna benefit from the jobs and stuff in that area either. So, it's complicated. Mike, like I said, I'm gonna lean on him because
Well, I'm an old banker learning utilities, so this is an old dog with a new bone here. And he said, well, how'd you get in that? I'm like, well, when you look down through 11 senators, or what anybody had any real history of this.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into this kind of thing. But I learned something new every day about this, is what I would
So
say.
good, bad, right or wrong, data centers are coming, yes?
we voted on what, last year? Yes.
So the question is, that they had a study one time that's in my office before I got there that's this thick. Bottom line was you need growth. And if you want to keep your utility bills down, you gotta have growth. So this is one of the avenues that's out there right now. And you sit there and say, well, why would you not want them? When they come and wanna build a data center out here, I'm sure you're gonna look at how much water you have and, you know, look at all the basics and make sure before you say yes to it, that you've looked at all that. So that's one issue. Another issue that, working on is what they call PSAP. So let's say you live out in western Kansas and you have a heart attack and your wife calls 911 and they have the ambulance coming out there, and it might take 45 minutes to get there. It's trying to get this person on the other end of the line to help the wife with what to do with the husband until the ambulance gets there. I didn't realize that was that big a deal. But they worked all summer on a joint committee with that deal that I thought come up with a deal, and that's the bill that's gonna come out here, come your way. But, what we're trying to do is make it cost effective, because what we're gonna have is this peace app that answers the phone out there is not gonna be qualified in all areas, because they have trouble getting employees, and then when they move, you know, getting somebody new at that. We're trying to get to where they will actually push a button and goes into a center that's an expert on it. So with our technology and stuff today, it's pushing that into something that can be more cost effective. So that's kind of where that kind of thing's going.
Is that gonna roll?
Charging stations, let's talk about that a little bit. That one's coming up this week too. So you have a convenience store wants to put in a charging station, and they buy their electricity from Evergy. Well, Evergy's got some charging stations of their own. And these people are complaining why, you know, government guarantees Evergy a rate of return, 9.4. Why, and I'm buying electricity from the guy I'm competing with. So that's one. So that's this week coming up, what I'd say, Steve, on things that's coming up.
And the PSAP deal is secondary to, we have all kinds of stats that for every 15 minutes that they get taken care of or get advice, the success ratio of them living and being successful, you know, and downstream health costs are reduced. So every 15 minutes, you know, if it's 45 minutes, if you give them there in 5 or 10, or get them information to how to deal with whatever issue they're suffering, it gets more expensive and of course more deadly too, the longer that happens. So that's kind of behind.
It is, in Butler County, we can thank God what we have in Butler County.
Yes.
Cause half of the counties have this, the other half don't. You don't hear that as much around here, cause we got all this. It's these, ones out there, and then how do you be fair to who pays what in this whole thing? So I feel good about where we're trying to go with that kind of thing, so. Then we had a co-op that has a subsidiary, that's another thing we've been working on, that wouldn't affect us around here, but it affects Western Kansas big time, and that's a bill that's gonna be coming to you guys. So it's kind of wading through those kind of things, and, the Farm Bureau has a bill out there. You guys been following that, Farm Bureau, that one at all, 417? I put it on and took it off. That's the first time I've done that, but I've got those people talking like he was talking about. And, we're getting to where they call it, getting a bill blessed. They're wanting us to bless it so they can keep talking and we might still work it, so. That kind of has to do with line sighting, and this is a big deal to Farm Bureau, so. They don't know it yet, but I'm probably gonna get that blessed, so you're gonna know something before they do, so.
I have a bill addressing the lake, well, it's not necessarily the lake, but camping fees at the lake, they haven't been raised in forever. Our parks, and Mike's been very, very helpful getting funding for a park, and, but it's raising camping fees that haven't been raised for, I don't know how long, 10, 12 years or something like that. And we're, wildlife and parks, these parks are, I could almost say 100% funded. In a $23 million budget, they get $95,000 worth of money that's not fees. So, and Mike did a good job the other day of allowing them in their fee funds to get the interest off that, because it had been going. But anyway, they're entirely fee funded, and I just say, if they're gonna be fee funded, we need to give them the tools to charge the fees that they need to run this.
Well, a quick note on that, I was at that meeting at the lake that
Yeah.
you were at,
Mm-hmm.
and I left early, and there was a lot of people complaining about
They
raising
were.
fees, but here's what I wanna tell you, I went out and counted the cars, there was 32 cars out there, and at least 20 of them were $60,000 or more, these big giant vehicles, so I'm just saying, these people are complaining, but they're driving, about they're gonna have to spend an extra $100, but they're driving a $60,000.
Yeah, and on that, you know, recreation, go to the movie, what's it cost to go to a movie? now?
$20.
$20 plus pop, you know what I'm saying? So
Popcorn's
our,
pretty expensive.
if you're thinking of your hours of enjoyment, you know, at the parks and stuff like that. And really, the cost, really does
100% agree.
with that. And so,
And we did pass a dedicated conservation funding for the state for the first time out of the ag committee. Now, it's still got a bill. It was originally $60 million, annually, and it dropped, it was amended down to 16 million, and 50% of that will go to your local conservation districts under the Department of Ag, which will help some water issues. There'll be some funding for that. And the other 25% will go to the wildlife side of wildlife and parks, and the other 25% will go to the outdoors for the parks. So we'll see how that goes. It's not a lot of money. Sounds like a lot, but it isn't up there. And so at least we got where that ends up. We'll know. That's a new one that at least passed out. We just worked a day before yesterday.
yeah.
Real quick, I wanna go back on this, on something that's kind of big to me. Number one, federal government. We all know what's going on in Washington, and what is really crazy when you get into this energy business is all the tax credits that we're giving out for green energy things. Now we're changing 180 degrees in some of that stuff. And I don't know how a person plans in that kind of thing, you know, if he was in the co-op business or whatever. So that's gonna be interesting to watch how that develops, as we go forward, so.
I think Leon's got a question.
Yeah, Leon Richmond, City Commission. I'm kind of curious, are you guys getting anything with AI out of this, which would help on what you're talking about on these systems? I've read where they've had people who have been giving medical advice on basic things to help cover like that.
So, actually, it was frightening. I chair the Cancer Oversight Committee. It's a joint committee of senators and House members that we meet every quarter to look at our Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of the items that came out of the committee, the previous meeting. We had an attorney there from Washburn, an AI attorney. And when he got through, and I had to cut him off because, you know, attorneys are pretty long-winded and we didn't want to be there forever. But it is incredible the amount of issues with AI. Like, you get diagnosis. What about people who's responsible for that if it's wrong? You know, I mean, I use an extreme example, but if it says drink bleach to cure the flu, you know, you think that, you know, people would be smart enough to do it. But I'm just saying, that's the kind of stuff and that was what his whole thing was about. People are getting real life and the other thing that he was talking about is you can ask it 2 different times, same question, you get 2 different answers, you know? So for people that are kind of vulnerable or not really thinking, this could be totally dangerous for them. Medicines that they say, you know, work for this and take another one, and the cross connection of those 2 medicines could kill you. So it's very complicated. I think there's some benefit in it. What I've been worried or concerned about, you think about AI, so how's it helping our most vulnerable people? You know, I mean, how's it helping people that are living below the poverty level? How's it helping people, you know, in the lower, is it bringing everybody up? You know what I'm saying? And that's my biggest concern. You think we were that damn smart, we could figure out how to bring everybody up to a level that they can have a living wage or live, or, you know, anyway, that's my soapbox on AI.
And we just started in that area, folks.
Yeah.
And I had lunch with KU people on Alzheimer's. You're gonna be able to walk in the doctor's office and they'll have a machine there to kind of diagnose within 2 hours of where you're at with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. I mean, they're just all kinds of things that are really gonna affect more than we realize.
We put $5 million in the budget yesterday to fund that.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. And so,
Moran's getting $5 million to help with
right.
that kind of thing.
But that is and they're also working on dementia and Parkinson's and that, but Alzheimer's is the first one. But there's a test that they do, and it has to do with some kind of amino acids or something. in your brain that actually clogs the blood vessels of your brain to keep the blood from getting through there, and that's the cause of Alzheimer's. And so, yeah, they have a test right now, and if you start to show symptoms, they can test you, and by changing your diet and some other stuff like that, they can prolong the onset of Alzheimer's by years, which is a ton of savings, not, nursing homes and everything else, but also quality of life issue, which is over savings every day.
I neglected to mention, I should, the Farm Bureau issue ought to be on this one. House Bill 2413 passed the House last week, which would increase the severity level of a theft of livestock, cattle and horses, as well as implements of husbandry to a severity level 5, if it's over $100,000, so we know that. So that was really good for the rural areas. And then a companion bill, House Bill 2422, passed out again, which would increase the severity level 6 to a non-person felony of stealing at least 400 bushels of corn or grain, because grain don't have any serial numbers. And if you're farming in Oklahoma and unscrupulous, little farm, you could bring a semi-load of near 1,000 bushels down to Oklahoma and nobody's the wiser. So that will benefit some of the potential rural crime.
Something on money I want to throw out here. Since, I don't know what year it was, we cut like taxes $1 billion. I seen a list of that the other day. So we sat in leadership kind of saying, well, we need to cut 200 million on expenses this year. And everything I've seen going through committee, everybody's wanting more money. Now, you can imagine what that's gonna be like the next 3 or 4 weeks, so. Everybody likes to play Santa Claus, but I'm thinking January comes around, so.
Well, I have a little different take on that. We added that up. I have to explain to people that I cut their income tax because it all comes out at the end of the year. They don't really know it. Sales tax on food, $600 million, all in on that. But I've been through this in Brownback years when we did the same damn thing. It's deja vu to me. So we cut $1 billion and then we go, oh, we might have cut a little bit too much. We need to cut. Well, every organization and business out there is faced with inflation, whether we like it or not. People say, oh, we need to hold the budget flat. Well, it doesn't. You can do that all day long, but it doesn't mean that the city of El Dorado doesn't have more expenses because, or some organization that takes care of ID&D, their insurance is going up, or the employee rate, insurance. So it's just unrealistic, and it just burns my. Now I'm spending just like tomorrow, and they can, never mind.
Well, I want to jump in. There's a bill that says if somebody buys a new car, they're gonna pay that big property tax, and then they're not going to. And the bill is saying you're only gonna have to pay it once, and it's gonna cost the state of Kansas $209 million a year to do away with it. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. I bought several new cars. You know what? And I buy them because I can afford them, and I should pay the property tax. And when you start talking about cutting property taxes on my car, I want to pay that property tax because I can buy a new car. And so I'm just saying that's 209 million, 200 million here, 300, gets back to the lake. People that can afford to pay those taxes should pay those taxes. I should pay those taxes. When I go to the lake, I should pay those taxes or that extra amount. I'm just saying is we can't cut.
Yeah, and I agree. And whenever you cut, you shift that burden over
Correct.
into something else, So I will tell you that when you're getting down there, sometimes as a car may pay more sales tax on the thing than it's worth. Over a period of time you knew, and then depending on how many times it sells, even when it gets down to $5,000 or $10,000, some states have a limit of how many times it can be sold, and then it's not taxed after that. But it's all about shifting that burden. If we don't do that, we'll have to make
Just
that.
saying, people that can afford it, and I'm one of those people that can't afford it, we should pay our fair share of taxes.
And I think sales tax is fair that way because you can control what you spend. If you don't want to pay any taxes, you don't spend any
And
money.
with that, by the way, thank you for getting rid of the sales tax on food.
Yeah, that needed to happen. It was expensive. I mean, that was $600 million.
And that was an unfair tax to, especially the people at the bottom end of it.
Are you guys talking anything about, I heard the other day, talking about raising the minimum wage?
You know,
That's a bill, that I would say, Leon, it just, does anybody put a bill in there and away it goes, so.
Okay.
She's
Oh,
running
I mean,
for.
Nebraska
That's-
just raised.
Yeah,
it.
I hear you, but I mean, you never know.
Yeah, well, nobody
COVID raised minimum wage.
Yeah, nobody pays minimum wage. Are you kidding me? Nobody
Right.
works for that. You know, it's a competition-driven deal, and if you wanna have employees, you better pay what it takes to get an
Market
employee. You know, minimum wage is just a joke, but we do have, the ID and DD folks were up there and they were talking about, they were paying 13 and 14 and Nebraska raised theirs to 15, so some of their people left and went across the border to do the same job, but they'll just have to get in the game.
Hey, Mike, real quick, Leroy Burton, there's supposedly something out there that for seniors on property taxes, that their property tax was frozen back in 2022. So if I file my property taxes this year and it's gone up from that level, I can get that difference back. Is that true?
You know, that's in another committee on the Senate side, and they spend all their time cutting taxes. You know, since I've been up there, that's all it is cutting taxes. And we gotta remember, we got 2.9 million people live in Kansas. That sounds like a lot, but then when you take the matrix of that, how many senior citizens and how many young people,
700,000.
how many poor rich people?
700,000 seniors.
And I've always said that one of the, challenges for us is sources of revenue. You know, if you go to Florida, you always hear about Florida, well, guess where you go on vacation, you know, and you pay their tax on sales tax.
Exactly.
So you have to look at our resources and say, what can we do? Cause we got choices. Do you want water or roads? You know, and education and, roads is over half what we do kind of stuff. And so these are choices.
State of Kansas does provide what's called the Homestead Act.
They
It's
do.
for people
They
that
do.
have basic
Based on
income.
income.
Thank you, and so we do provide that.
We do.
So I'm gonna come back to senior citizens that can't afford it,
Yeah.
should afford it.
Yeah.
My dad always told me that. My dad was a senior citizen. Every time he went to a game, even though he could get in free, he still paid because he said, son, I'm gonna pay because I can.
Well, whenever we
You
shift
come
the
up and
burden,
testify, well,
you know, whenever we exempt seniors, we put the burden on the young families trying to raise kids. I mean, it's just, you gotta broaden that base and it's difficult, choice, and, you know, I got a phone call from a lady who moved from Sedan, my district, and to a gated community, bought a house for $170,000, and it's now, her husband passed away, she moved up there next to be her daughter, and now the house is valued at near $600,000, and her social security, she can't pay it. I mean, and so, I mean, the property tax, so it's a huge thing, we get a lot of complaints on it, and a lot of it's local, it's out of our control.
Well, it's in the Constitution about how it's divided, that local governments will be, property tax related and the state won't be. So it's gonna involve a constitutional
So
change.
you mentioned that, and I know some of Senator Masterson's discussions that I've seen about pushing something to the constitutional vote.
Yeah.
What is that? When he says that, what's kind of the big picture of that?
I don't know what the big pusher is, but I think it's to put a 3% cap on, Mike could probably talk to it better than I did, but the one I've heard about is a 3% cap on your
There's been
valuation.
some chatter about constitutional amendments based on property tax, and I'm not sure that's.
Yeah, and I think that it's around that, but, you know, anybody, so you just raise your mill levy, I mean, you cap your valuation, I mean, it's based on the mill, you know,
No, I know.
valuation times the mill levy, so these
It's a
people.
double-edged sword, totally, and that's why I was wondering what is some of the chatter about how that is.
Yeah, I went to Colorado for a conference here 2 years ago, and they have a 5% cap on theirs, and it's basically killed the real estate market, because nobody wants to sell their house because then they lose that. And the
Right.
people that buy it get the valuation,
They get the new value.
the new valuation, and then theirs is capped till they sell it, but it just creates
Steps.
a step, an artificial market, so to speak, that really I don't think is, I don't think it's healthy, but sounds good.
So you have a caucus meeting on that, Vince, and, you know, that's where the real fighting goes on. When you come out to the floor, you don't really wanna fight each other. You know, if you can't win it in caucus, how you gonna win it on the floor?
Yes.
You got one more comment,
I-
man?
I had a question about the
I'm
rural
not worried
hospitals, how we're doing on protecting those with the people like southeast Kansas, western Kansas, where you're so far apart. Getting the ambulance there in 45 minutes, are we keeping our local hospitals? What kind of, I know it's all funded, how are we doing?
Well, I'll just go on a little example. So we do have, a lot of rural states have a lot of problems with their hospitals, and we've been looking at it for a long time. And part of it, there's a group of people that are kind of getting our act together, dealing with the new rural emergency money from the feds. We got $220 million. And largely, we got more than anybody else, and largely it was because of the quality of our application and dealing with what we were gonna deal with and use the money with. But one of the things that I think, I've been working with the Hospital Association and all kinds of folks around the state, and it's a model, it's called a Rural Emergency Hospital. And we've got one in Mound Ridge, and Park City, I think, has one, doesn't it, Doug?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's really to right-size our hospitals, you know. Things have changed, and now everybody just sends them to, you get them to the hospital, you triage them as a clinic or something like that, and then you send them to the big hospitals. You can't afford to pay the specialists or the people out there. So that's the model, and it takes about $5 million because it's a different funding source, fee-for-service versus PPS rate. So it takes about $5 million in supplemental funding to get them changed over. And so we're looking really, really hard at that, and pushing to change all of our, not all of them, because we do have some, you know, and it's about rooftops. And, you know, there's hospitals that are in better, you know, larger communities, they don't need this, but if you're in a small area. So we're looking at changing those over to a rural emergency hospital model and spending, arguably $100 million of that $200 million on that, but we're on it, and that's a little bit different deal than them just giving us the money, and I'm okay with that. We have to do it, and then when we do it, we apply for the money that we've spent. So they're really going to monitor our, and I'm fine with that, our progress and what the good we're doing. I'm fine with that versus just giving us the money and then us blowing it. We apply and they look at it and they say, okay, that's a good program, and the funding and it's a 5-year program, and that is, the next year's funding is contingent on how good you did with the first year's funding, which is great. I mean, I'm not complaining. We should be under the microscope for making sure that we're using the people's money efficiently.
And our area, the Vet Health has joined in, they're working with a regional hospital concept of having 2 hospitals actually share some medical physicians and some testing equipment. Like in the case of Independence and Coffeyville, Independence went out. Prior to that, Independence spent $2.5 million on imaging equipment. Coffeyville done the same thing, 10 miles apart. And for a population that's declining, we need it's turf battle again. We need some cooperation to be able to share those specialty physicians that they may not be able to afford. So I think that's a good program too that will help.
Along those same lines, especially for the representatives, I think maybe Senator Fagg knows, but, so I'm Tamara Daniel, I'm the new president of Butler Community College. I want to tell you something along those same lines that I have done with SBA here locally. So Melissa Hall and I met, and very early on, you know, I think my second week, and we started talking about the needs for SBA and what they had. And the description you gave is pretty much exactly what she told me. She said, you know, we're a rural hospital. When we have a situation in the emergency room, we want to prepare them the best way we can to get them out, you know, to Wichita, to whatever hospital needs to take place. We recently, started in the fall, we wrote a Perkins Reserve grant, and we also used business and industry money to set up 10 rooms in small, SBA's hospital, had an empty floor, it just wasn't being used. We are in the process of equipping those rooms. We actually are doing CNA classes and EMR classes out of there this semester for the first time. But the piece that I think was so important for the business and industry money, which I know you guys, you know, have supported, we took some of that money as we had the discussions with Melissa Hall and her team, my team and her team, in a conference room. And we talked about a specific mannequin called the Victoria mannequin. It's not one, it's a little above the level of what you really need in the education system for our students to train on, but it's extremely important for her doctors and nurses to train on for delivering babies, because it has the complexity to be able to handle those really rare, hard, difficult situations and train them how to deliver that baby. She had no equipment for incumbent workers at all there. And for her, that was a huge deal. So we now have a partnership where we're working with their employees inside, as well as our students training there. And then the idea is that we can also hopefully build a white coat program for all of Butler County to help out healthcare, because she has the space there. We have the expertise and we have the faculty members to do it, but we purposely use that business and industry money to help that hospital create those scenarios that will better equip them to get our people safe and out to the metropolitan hospitals that can take care of them. So I just want to make
Well,
you
thank
know
you
that
for that.
that's business and
And I
industry money
think-
really well spent.
I'm working together.
I think you won't hear this from the hospital, but this hospital is in a lot of danger. It's not just this hospital, but they are. And
There's 60 of them on the list.
we've got to start thinking about that. And it's very difficult when you're at the hospital, say we're in danger, but I'm just telling you. We got some funding for them last year through the HCAP program, and they can now sell, Jerry Moran got help, they can buy 340B drugs cheaper now, that just happened. They're just, but it is, it's tough there. And again, it's back to the model that they're doing. And while we're talking about, you know, you have a great nursing program, and we give the nurses $10,000 more a year.
And they, really, it's very much appreciated because we struggle to get them.
Which is so crazy, but what happens is you can't pay, I mean, so you got your staff, and if you give the nurse more, then the other staff
It's
gets pissed off
it's
at.
a union problem.
Yeah,
You know,
gets
for us,
pissed
we're in
off because they
negotiations
make
right
it,
now, and
even
yes,
though
it's a
you
problem.
need a nurse,
Yeah.
more nurses, so we give them, in adjacent to your budget, we give them
Yes.
$10,000 a year more for being a nurse
Yes.
instructor.
Yes, sir, you're right.
And Mike committee will cut it right now.
Well, it's out.
I think it's the other way around now.
But anyway, we're doing things to try it.
I know you are.
We have a severe nursing shortage in our state.
We
and
do.
We're doing everything we can get. And we
And-
appreciate the work you're doing.
And don't murder me, I introduced a
Yeah.
bill in behalf of Butler County Commission to have a countywide sales tax, by a vote. So we don't know where it's gonna go. I have just a corner of it, they maybe pick me off because I have a further distance, you can't throw rocks quite far down. Anyhow, we did I did introduce that bill in tax, and, most of the time when we introduce a bill that requires a vote of the citizens of that county, it pretty well goes through, so, we've had a request for that. I, like Chair Carpenter, am very supportive of the sales tax as opposed to some property tax, so they had on the original part of it that said it'll be exclusively used for reduction of property tax. The original proposal from Butler County was reduce property taxes and economic development. I said, I am not going into those weeds. I want, and don't go there. And so they took that off, so if it passes and you guys vote on it and pass it, then they will utilize that countywide sales tax to reduce property tax.
So I wanna say a little bit into that area. When you talk hospital, we all know how important a hospital is here, I would hope. And we know 60 of them are in trouble. I've been trying to kick the idea around, and if I had the chance to vote for it myself, and I'm talking as an individual, I think we need a sales tax for the hospital. And I can tell you that McPherson, it works, because McPherson's in my district, and so I see a lot of, Fredonia has a sales tax. I mean, this is being used for hospitals.
City sales
Yeah.
tax.
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
so if you hear that come up, I want you to look at that very carefully, because I think that is a great way. The other thing on sales tax, somebody else helps pay. There's people that come from outside. And if you go to the hospital today and watch how many people walk in there that can't pay, and they have to take care of them, I'm saying this is an issue, folks, and this is, money doesn't grow on trees, so you tell me. So I'm
Well, then
really
the other-
in support of some kind of half-cent sales tax or something to do that.
The other part of that is the ones that walk in that can't pay, anyone that could walk in and pay go to Wichita.
Yeah.
That's the biggest, I mean, I can remember, 20 years ago, there was a big argument, well, why does El Dorado even need a hospital? Because you can go to Wichita and get all the services that you need.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, they were probably serving as many or more people from Greenwood County and Elk and Chautauqua County as they were Butler County.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a more of a regional thing than it is a local thing almost on the hospital type issue.
Well, when you're having a heart attack, it makes a difference.
Mhm.
Can I ask, Butler County is kind of interesting on the hospital front, because there is another hospital in Butler County besides Susan Gallup,
Yeah.
which is Kansas Medical Center in Andover. So a tax like that, you know where I'm going.
This is my opinion, because there's one for profit and one not for profit.
Yes,
There you go.
yes.
So I would envision it being a city sales tax, and we
City
just keep
sales
it
tax,
here.
not a
Well,
county
Right.
sales
Yeah,
tax.
we could talk about that one.
But it could be crafted into a nonprofit and take that.
Let the for-profit take care of their own business.
Yeah.
One of the challenges in hospitals in El Dorado and Butler County is that by some definitions, we're a rural hospital. We certainly function as a rural hospital, but some definitions we're not, because Andover's only 60 miles away, 70 miles away.
Yeah, and Eureka actually comes in that zone, that's why they can't get the critical access designation. And that's what kept them for a long time of having 340B drugs, because critical access hospitals can't be within 30 or 35 miles.
Right.
But Moran did something on the federal level to get that taken care of, so they can in fact buy those. But it was set up, again, that's years and years ago, I mean, a lot of these laws are from when they were.
We now have 340B recognition here at Susan B.
Right.
It's limited to drugs prescribed by a hospital employee. But some of the infusion drugs that are really expensive, we can now buy on 340B.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Which makes you more competitive.
Right.
To his point, all the women that I've known, who have said that they're gonna have kids, so are you going to El Dorado? No, I'm going to Wesley, thank you. Why would I ever go to, because they're just gonna fly me over, I even talked to Doc Varner, my neighbor, and he's like, well, I just tell them to go to Wesley. So when it comes to like that end of it, it's hard to convince because when it's your baby, it's hard to convince them to do it here. Now, as far as all the other care, I truly believe that. I mean, I go up, I've been up there several times, kidney stones, whatever have you, and they're fantastic. And I really hope that we can keep this hospital here. But as far as some of those other things, it's hard. It's gonna be hard to sell to especially women and babies. You know, other than if you're of a lower income, that's hard to do.
We deliver a lot of babies.
Yeah.
To upper income people.
Yeah.
And they're usually folks that were born at Susan B. I was, and my kids were. And grandkids would be, except they don't live around here anymore.
I kind of wanted my son, my youngest son, to be born there just so that you're not, so he wasn't part of the mass of people from Leslie. Like, why would you want to have that? You know, it was like, just be something different. But you can't convince a mom. I'm not the one delivering the baby, so I can't convince mom.
Wait till it unless it comes up something that's serious that maybe they don't have stuff to deal with. That's
Sure.
the hard part. And how do you determine that beforehand? I don't mind telling you, in 1958, I had a brother that died up here, not nobody's fault, cord wrapper on his neck. That should never have happened. But, you know, you never know. My oldest daughter was born up here. Now my kids go to Wesley. I would tell them to go here, but she ain't gonna listen to me, so I give up.
We have the same problem in Coffeyville. They all want to go to Barnesville.
Yeah.
The women to have the babies.
Part of it is public perception.
Yes, you're
It
right.
is. It's-
Public perception becomes truth in our world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Guaranteed
Well,
you.
people have a tendency, you know, in sales, you always learn that if somebody's disgruntled, they tell 20 people.
Yeah.
If they're happy, they tell 3.
One.
And so whenever you have those
Exactly.
issues, that's what part of what the hospital's facing. I had one of my kids up here, but, that's kind of what they're facing is that the gossip, the, you know, the stories, those kind of things. And if we could convince people of the positives, and I do see, I mean, at least I used to see pamphlets come out of the hospital that, you know, let people know, hey, this is what's going on. And I think we're all a part of that. The more we promote the good things that are happening in our county and in our state, the more talk that goes that way. Not that we should look past what's bad, but I think that's what we face a lot. Bells and whistles or something too, you know, but I think it's the perception people have of whatever you're trying to promote is the problem.
You wouldn't wanna do this, but it would be one of those deals if we could just close them for a month and then see how much people missed them. You know,
Yeah.
you miss them when we're gone, when they're gone.
Miss you when you're gone.
Yeah, and I know that firsthand from my grocery stores that I've closed all of them. And I still have people come up to me, my God, we missed that store. Well, it's gone, you know.
I am curious with how much people spend on healthcare already, how excited we would be to, let's put a little bit more on sales tax for healthcare. So that's a whole, that goes back to your pharmacy benefit managers and insurance. It's a big issue that we're not gonna fix today, but just.
Well, I think when you see the cost benefits, when you have some kind of medical emergency and it's 30 miles away, you
Agree.
need it in 5.
Totally agree.
you
I
know.
agree we need, I just
So,
don't know how excited people
well,
will be
I
to spend
mean,
more money.
Not sure how much price you put on that one either.
Hi, thanks. Deanna Bond, Everyday El Dorado. And specifically, this is for Will, because you heard from me last week. I mean, if you checked your email.
I've been very, I just thought I'm like Mike on that. I get 100 emails a day.
Sure.
And I wade through them as best I can.
Sure, but I'm here now.
Okay, perfect.
So I can't think of what the bill was, but you'll probably know. I have a question up and a follow-up regarding in it was the limit on HCBS waivers. And my question is, one, do you know where that's at? My communication was to not put a limit on the waiver because, and I gave examples, but I'll share them. My mother, who's passed away now, was legally blind, and she benefited from having the HCBS waiver. I have a niece who's autistic and some other things. And so when she was in the home, she had need for that HCBS waiver. She's no longer in the home. And I had a brain injury. Now, I'd never had an HCBS waiver, didn't know it was an option at the time. I'm past the time of needing it. I would have needed it for a short, couple of year period. So that's something very personal to me. So I'm wondering if you know where that's at and what your position is.
I got it. And I deal with that.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm actually the vice chair of the
I
committee
know.
that does that, but, so my chairman and I, but we have that, and just, I can spend an hour telling you about that, but I'll just get very quickly. These waivers, they're the FE, which is the frail and elderly, and the TA, which is technological assisted, and the brain injury, and the PD. They were threatening a wait list. We're not gonna have a wait list on them, for one thing. It makes no sense. All these folks, we're keeping them out of the more expensive care. So, for instance, the frail and elderly, if they're all, everybody that is in the frail and elderly is eligible to go to a nursing home. A nursing home costs us $57,000 a year. The frail and elderly waiver, of all the services on that costs us about 22. Figure it out. Where do you wanna spend the money? And they're in their home. So what that does is it gives them services that, you know, they buy groceries for them or bathe them 3 times a week. You know what I mean? All kinds of services to keep them in their home. It's cost avoidance for us. It's quality of life issue for them. We know that it's more expensive to house them in a nursing home. And when I say house them, that's not a very, anyway. So all those waivers we've funded. We'll see what the Senate does. Yeah, we know that. We know, PD same way. We know all that. We've got money in the budget. Matter of fact, I brought the damn budget home today or this weekend to go over. We report out social services budget. The chairman reports out Monday morning on DCF and KDADS, and that's in, KDADS is Tuesday. But we've got money in there and we'll be fine.
And I guess, follow up, if you don't mind, Mike, if it's going to the Senate, what's your position on that?
Remember, we're making sausage.
Yep.
So he's setting a position, you know, our position on that. I would think that we should be okay. I think Bellinger's attitude toward this kind of thing's good.
The Senate's been really supportive. You know, from the first time that I chaired that committee, I always, you tend to forget sometimes that there's a second chamber that happened. And I did all this work, didn't even talk to my Senate counterparts over there. They didn't even know what the hell was going on. It goes to conference and nobody knew what was going on. So I learned after that, my Senate counterparts, Bellinger and Steve Owens and the chairman of those committees, they know exactly what I'm doing. When I get done with my recommendations, they go over them. That doesn't mean they're taking them all, but they know what I'm working on, so.
Mike,
Thank you.
we testified a week ago in the committee on that up there, and I'm glad to hear you say that when Chuck made his presentation, that you guys have listened and everything. This is great because that waiver list was 18 months or so, I think, is something that was projected as being like that. And, you know, some people require that. They die before they get their 18-month waiver in, and they need that assistance and everything. So I'm glad to hear it's coming out. Mike, go for it.
And just to be clear, just so, we put 10 million in for 2026 this year, and we put 10 million in for next year. So, we didn't fund the entire 33 million that they wanted. I'm trying, believe it or not, some people wouldn't believe this. I'm actually trying to kind of hold the line where I can, but there's other things that I don't apologize for advancing funding, and I'll never apologize for trying to save money on the FE waiver versus, I mean, even an idiot can figure out that you spend 20-some thousand or you spend 57,000. That's, anyway, I'm done. Wow.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't mind.
Just wondering if there's, small farmer, and, what's going on with ag, what's rumblings, what's anything going on with it?
Well,
Doug's
the pesticide bill, we had a big battle over that for basically labeling. And that, we got a group that doesn't want any chemicals, and I understand that, and they don't really quite understand what farming is at, and basically, they wanted for Kansas as this individual state to develop their own label. And, that's not really cost effective. Quite frankly, I don't trust KDHE anymore, and I trust EPA, but you gotta have somebody to trust. And I give an analogy on the floor that basically, from our urban counterparts that wanna keep their body, control what they wanna put in it, you have an organic food label in the produce section. You have to rely on somebody making that label what it is, and it's supposedly the experts, right, wrong, or in between. And so it really wasn't cost effective, and it would have really penalized the ag community, increased production. Nobody, and I'm old enough to remember what riding and cultivating was like, and it's no fun and slow and modern production. We couldn't feed the world what we're doing now without chemicals. I went to no-till about 25 years ago. As a wildlife biologist, I was very sensitive to the environment. I had to make a decision to do because no-till, while it saves the soil for future use and production, it reduces phosphorus, it reduces a lot of nutrients getting into the water and stuff. It's also chemical dependent. You have to be able to use chemicals for the most part. And even if you use cover crops, there'll be people that say, there's people around that, I don't care, if we walk on water, they're gonna criticize us, guaranteed. It does not make any difference. They have their own opinion, that's fine. You have your opinion, and, you're not gonna convince me, we'll agree to disagree. But, we just have to make a decision based on what's the best for the, economic, that's 45% of Kansas economy is ag. So we have to be real sensitive. I mentioned the theft of the stock trailers and that's a benefit. The conservation bill, that's
What was the, you had talked about the penalties on that. What was the raising of the penalties?
Yeah, and I'm not a lawyer, but when you lower the numbers, it gets worse. To me, it should be the other way, but a severity level 5 is worse than a severity level 6. And they're a non-person felony.
Yeah.
And then on the theft of livestock, cattle and horses, they're defined in statute. Animal husbandry, because I asked a dumb question, I said, does that include, I gotta give up my pitchfork, which I'm getting old enough I wouldn't mind that. But no, they're specified, certain, your fertilizer spreader, combine, of course, tractors, and some livestock trailer. So those are specified, and the value, as the value of what's stolen goes down, so as the severity level goes up. I mean,
sure,
the crime's less. If you steal something, it's still a crime.
Sure.
But, yeah, that's kind of what we're working on that.
Okay.
As we get to the end, Mike has been very vocal about how he would like to be contacted by phone. How about the two of you? Email
For me. I'm sitting here looking at them and I probably got 100 since I left on Thursday night.
I put some cards out here, and my cell number's on, you can
My
call me.
cell number's on this too.
If it's a form, email that's put out sometimes by a company that you just pay, it has your name on it, but they send it out for you, like say no to pill tax is one of those, delete. I will read one or two to find out I may scroll down if I have time to see if that person is in my district, and I will try maybe to respond to that one. But basically, now, the one thing I'll say for the assistant anesthetist, I have never got so many letters from doctors that take the time, who are having a very busy schedule, not a form letter endorsing that. And I'm probably gonna support it in committee. A year ago, I supported the CRNA, but basically the gouging during COVID has caused that bad taste in my mouth. When you outwork people up there, it makes a big difference. It shows something they want in the competition. So, I've never had so many of those. And so those, I've got a stack on my desk, and I've read I'm a fast reader and I scroll through them. I'm not saying I detail, but I scroll through them and read almost all the letters. A phone call to my office assistant is good. And to maybe set up a time if you call in, because we're in and out so much, it's hard to get in contact. She will schedule an appointment. My week is usually Monday morning. I will be in local government as vice chair at 9 o'clock. So a lot of times we'll have calendar where we discuss the upcoming bills. It starts at 8:30, that consumes that time. So in reality, the only time I will have is when I get out of the local government committee between that and 11 o'clock when we're gavel in on the floor. And we normally won't get out of that committee till around 10:30. So I've got basically 30 minutes between committees and time we be on chamber. And normally that's, the other day, we didn't have 30 minutes. We run,
No,
we run real, a little bit long. Sometimes they'll run long, but it's tough to get access. It's not that we don't want it. That's the reason why I really thank all of you. I enjoy this, even though I don't agree with some of the people in comments, I still enjoy this. This feeds me, grassroots, everyday people, of what's going on.
Yeah.
And, cause I hear it straight from the mouth. You can read body language. Does that make me mad? Does it make her mad? I mean, it's a whole more personal to me. I guess I'm old school on that.
And I would tell you, information overload, we're not experts, I guarantee you. And there is so much out there, it's kinda like flying over a forest and you have to pick the tree out. You know, with what is going to be in my area at that time, and trying to get something that's being introduced in the house and somebody's all upset, I can't spend the time on that. Because it's got a whole process it's gotta go through before it comes to my side, so just kinda keep that in mind.
And then it has a whole process too. A lot of people get concerned when something's introduced, well, hell, it's gotta get out of the committee, then it's gotta get to the floor. And, leadership has the ability to hold it below the line, and sometimes I ask for that, you know, because it came out of committee against my wishes, and I say, Mr. Leader, that thing is poison pill or whatever, you know. And so, and then it's gotta go to the Senate and deal with the same thing, so it's not easy to pass it.
And our forefathers were very smart people.
Yes.
You know, I look at this and it's gotta go through a lot of tests, you know, to make that happen.
Yeah.
Something you think will go real easy gets hung up, and something that's hard goes right through, and at the end of the day, most of the stuff comes out at the end is pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good example, at the Ag Committee, we had a representative, a fellow representative, introduce a bill to stock pheasants on public land. And I, as you probably already would know, I get passionate at very things when I know, I hate somebody telling me something that's wrong.
Right.
I just hate that. I mean, but he wanted to stock them on public land, but his motives was great.
Yeah.
He was wanting to provide an opportunity for kids. They don't have to go out and lug a 8-pound shotgun for half a mile through weeds this tall, wear down, and be able to get them into experience and some of the things that we probably enjoyed as kids. And however, he didn't do a lot of things. Biologically, I'm retired, and that's a futile attempt. The demand's always there, but the end result's the same. It's futile. When you stock pin-raised birds in the wild, there's a lot of smiling coyotes and foxes. and you lose about, I think the studies at 85% within the first month. There will be a slight few, so they don't all get eaten or die. But he was proposing a $15 stamp for public lands. And I said, if you price what a pheasant cost, that'd allow you maybe on a good day to release one pheasant. And he wanted the license, people that are buying them license to support that. And I've done some book work. State of Connecticut does that. State of Connecticut has 3.6 million acres, pretty small. Compared to Kansas, we have about 86 million acres. And trying to stock that, and they spend 5,000 people buy stamps at $28 a piece. They release 20,000 pheasants that cost them $13 a piece, and basically it's $120,000 income and a $260,000 expense to the agency $140,000 loss, and they do it every year, they've done it for 10 years, and they still don't have a pheasant population. So those are the things that the chairman, we deal with, and sometimes that's against our fellow colleagues that we have to almost beat them up. I mean, or anytime you just state the facts, sometimes they get their feelings hurt. And I've had mine hurt, believe you, I've had my share of my moments. And so it's kind of funny how it works.
Yep.
And folks, keep in mind, you talk Republican and Democrat, remember there's young and old, there's rich and poor, and there's urban and rural. You throw this all in that mix, it's a very, interesting process, is what I would say. But we do look at our districts and trying to understand what you guys want in our pocket as we go through this maze of how we do this.
Everybody get the questions asked?
Thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Jimmy, for taking the time to come out here.